Okay, so I'd like to talk about treatment to prevent cardiac arrest with an implantable defibrillator. Recall we were talking about the patients that we've defined to be at high risk that might go into one of these life-threatening arrhythmias, ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, and how the only treatment for that is electrical if it happens, and you got to do it right away. So we've developed, our field, the electrophysiologists have developed a implantable device that can be life-saving in those folks, and that's the implantable defibrillator, or we abbreviate that ICD, implantable cardioverter defibrillator. We very often get questions from pacemakers, well, is that a pacemaker? And what's the difference between that and a pacemaker? And it's a great question, and it's one I don't think we've done a very good job as a field of defining, and I'll try to do that for anybody that's interested now. Every defibrillator is also a pacemaker. They have built into it, we talked about this in another talk, they have built into it the process to speed up a slow heartbeat. That's in every defibrillator. Now there are different degrees of fanciness to these pacemakers, but they all have it built into it. Some of the very early devices didn't, but all of them now do. On the other hand, every pacemaker is not a defibrillator. The big difference is a defibrillator is much larger and has the ability to shock the heart, whereas a pacemaker is much smaller and can't shock the heart. But both devices have the ability to deliver a low energy pulse and speed up a slow heartbeat. So let's say many people we recommend a defibrillator and have absolutely no need for a pacemaker. Their heart rate's perfectly fine. They don't need to be sped up, but it's in there just in case. So how does a defibrillator work? Well, recall the only way you can terminate a life-threatening arrhythmia when it's quivering is with a shock. The way you do that in somebody without a defibrillator is you put paddles on the front and back or front and side of the heart, deliver a high-energy pulse that'll go right through the skin into the heart and shock it. The way you do it with an implantable device is with a wire. The traditional way of doing this we call a transvenous implantable defibrillator. One that's been around since the early 90s, late 80s, is put in very, very similarly to a pacemaker. We take the vein up here that enters into the heart, and we pass through that vein a wire that goes down into the heart, and we attach it to the inner surface of the heart. Now, different than a pacemaker wire, this wire has built into it what we call a shocking coil, which is a long, bare area, not insulated. So essentially bare metal through a long area we call a shocking coil right there that sits inside the heart. The device is then attached, or the wire is then attached to a unit that is larger than a pacemaker unit. It's smaller than a pack of cigarettes. Used to be when I carry a pager, about the size of a digital pager. I don't carry the pager anymore. But that sits up here inside the body underneath the skin. This device is going to sit inside the body and constantly watch the heart rhythm. If the heart rhythm is fine, it's going to do nothing. It's just going to sit. If the heart rhythm slows down, then this device will turn into a pacemaker and deliver a little pulse of electricity to make the heart squeeze. We have lots of different versions of this. The one I drew here is the simplest one, which is just a single wire. Now, if the heart goes into one of these life-threatening arrhythmias and begins to quiver and shake and needs a shock, this device will detect that and then charge up and be ready. Some of these will stop on their own. It'll wait a couple of seconds. If nothing happens, it's going to charge up. And then generally within 10 seconds or less, it'll deliver a shock. And the shock is a very high energy pulse that comes out of this shocking coil and it essentially grounds up here to what we call the can. So just like you have two paddles for shocking someone externally, this is essentially one paddle inside the heart, and then the device itself, which is a metal can up here, serves as the other paddle, and the shock is delivered through the heart up to the can, and that will actually convert the heart back to normal rhythm. So in real terms, after we put one of these in, the analogy I give a patient, I say, imagine your body's a car and you're the driver and I'm the mechanic. I just saw you and I evaluated your car and I found out you need an airbag. And so I now install the airbag. The defibrillator is the airbag. You're going to then drive your car for many, many years, and if you got in an accident, the airbag's going to deploy. and it'll be a bit of a jarring episode, but it's better than the alternative, and it'll save your life. So that's essentially what the defibrillator is doing. It's just sitting in there, watching you constantly. If your heart stops, it's going to go ahead and deploy like an airbag would, and one version of that is to deliver a shock. And the shock is, I tell people, it's like you had imagine I took a baseball bat and whacked you pretty hard in the chest. It's not like, Joey Votto hard, but it's in between a good jolt. The reaction would be similar to if you were scared from behind. You would feel a jolt, and it would scare you, and it would cause a bit of a muscle jerk. One shock is more of a startle than anything else, and many patients I've talked to say, well, it absolutely gets your attention, but it isn't horrible. I will say those same patients will tell you if you get more than one in a row and you're not sure if they're going to keep coming, which is rare, but that does happen. That's pretty unpleasant. But again, still better than the alternative, which is in many cases a cardiac arrest. So that's how the device works. Now, there are other ways the defibrillator can fix the rhythm. There are some rhythm disturbances where we can detect it, and then we can terminate it back to normal rhythm without a high energy shock, but with a little rapid pulse of pacing. And that's particularly gratifying because you take something that's life-threatening, fix it, the patient moves on. They have no idea anything happened. Now, the way we find all this stuff out, and in general, let's talk about follow-up issues. These devices are very, very sophisticated. In addition to being able to do all this, they also have communication mechanisms built into them that send data to us. All of our patients who get these devices get, in addition to the device, a monitor that plugs into their home wall socket and either their phone cord or it communicates with the cellular network. But one way or another, it's going to get information from the device wirelessly to the box in their home, and then from that box in their home uploaded into the internet and then sent to us. So if my patient has a defibrillator and they get a shock, it's going to send the news that they got that shock into the internet, and it's going to come to our office and we'll be notified. And then we'll actually get the information from inside the box of what actually happened, and we'll be able to address that, contact the patient, and take the next steps, whatever those might be. In addition, those same mechanisms of follow-up also give us information about the battery life in the device. How are we doing? How many more years? Is it time to replace the device? And also the sort of the structural integrity and health of the device. Are all the wires working properly? Is there any evidence of a wire fracture or dislodgement or anything like that? So all that information gets beamed out of this device into these home monitors and then sent to us, so we can keep an eye on you from a long distance away and minimize the amount of times you actually have to be in the office. So if somebody gets a shock, we can actually handle most of these without them even going to the emergency room. We can find out that they got the shock. We can call the patient, see how they're doing, maybe order some testing if they need that, and set up an office visit. But if they're doing fine, we generally don't send them to the emergency room. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it. Someone who has a life-threatening arrhythmia would have died without the defibrillator, is not even in the hospital. We're managing them from home with a phone and computer network.